All right, I think we can get the show started. Thank you all for joining. District 3's validation pitch night, the first time we do this online publicly. This was the first time we actually do this validation program fully virtual as well, since it started in the beginning of May, in a time where we witnessed once in a lifetime pandemic. Super excited to hope to show you 9 startups today that have finished the validation program. Thank you all for joining. We still have more people joining right now, but thank you all for joining, and really excited to get the show started. And you know, the last 12 weeks have been incredibly intense, and you know, the teams that practically joined this program almost had no traction at all. But you know, through a lot of weekly sessions where they learned how to target customers and be able to refine their messaging, their pricing, and their market, to be able to position themselves in a way where they can actually get to market successfully, so they can find this right problem and a solution fit. Ultimately, the validation program helps early stage entrepreneurs validate their business model and the key assumptions that they make on their business model. Ultimately, to set you on the right path to have a viable business that you can actually make money. Because it's not enough to solve a problem for one person. You want to make sure that you solve a problem for a sizable market that addresses a sizable market that can make a viable business. We've offered the validation program as well as other entrepreneurial programs for over 600 startups now over the past 6 years. And would like to ask any aspiring entrepreneur, if you're looking, if you have a business idea, or if you're working already on an idea that's in the market, to please visit us, visit our website, district3.co. We'd be happy to see how we can help you find the right program that fits your needs and your ambitions as well. All right, we still have more people joining, so I'd like to continue thanking everyone who's joining wherever you are around the world. And I would like to introduce myself. My name is Ahmed El Wasimi. I go by Was a lot in the community. It's a long story why. My background is in product, UX, and design, so I tend to help a lot of entrepreneurs in my areas of expertise. My main passion really is in helping early stage entrepreneurs validate their business ideas and find, get the momentum and the focus they need to excel. I'm a part of a core team that designs the validation program as well as other programs, and I'm the facilitator and I animate the sessions throughout the program throughout the 12 weeks. I am your host for today, and I would love to get to know more a bit about the audience and who's here today, and let you know as well. So I'd like to ask where you're dialing in from. Are you dialing in from Quebec, Ontario, other parts of Canada? Maybe it's in the US, or are you outside Canada and the US? And would love to know why you were interested in attending this pitch night, right? Are you a potential investor that's looking for potential opportunities? Are you an aspiring entrepreneur that's looking to kickstart a business idea and validate? Or do you want to be potentially part of an upcoming startup that has growth potential? Or maybe you're just using this as a learning opportunity. All right? Give you a few seconds here to answer. All right, awesome. So the majority definitely from Quebec, but we do have some in Ontario, some in the US, other parts of Canada, and also outside Canada and the US. Mainly aspiring entrepreneurs here, that's great to see. And people who also want to be part of a startup. So hopefully you'll get inspired by a lot of the founders here and see if there's any ideas that interest you, that you find attractive. We will find ways to facilitate and make connections. And I would love to remind everyone again to please visit district3.co. Feel free to reach out to me if you find me on LinkedIn. If you also want help on whether your idea, some feedback on your idea, I'm always happy to help aspiring entrepreneurs. All right, back to the main reason for the event today is its validation, right? It's the results of 9 startups and what they've gone through over the last 12 weeks. These are people who these are teams that have been developing solutions, harnessing harnessing emerging technology across many different industries, MedTech, FinTech, HealthTech, and more. And today, it would not have been possible, honestly, without the support of all the D3 coaches that we have, right? So I'd like to thank all the coaches that have helped all of those startups along the way. And also today is not only a celebration for what they've done over the last 12 weeks, we are going to be asking, after we present all their pitches, we're going to be asking the crowd to poll on their favorite startups. And then hopefully this will be used so we can impact the decision we're going to make on the startups that continue throughout the Launch and Grow program. The Launch and Grow program is ideally where startups continue after validation. If they've reached the point of validation, ideally that we need them to be, they continue with dedicated coaching and access to other services, access to how to get funds and get to market as well. So before kicking off the startups and their pitches, I would love to introduce a special guest today. One of my role models I've been following for now easily 10 years ago, since I embarked in the whole lean startup, the lean startup space, and he's the creator of the Lean Canvas, author of Running Lean. He's the founder and CEO of Wired Reach. He's regularly hosts amazing workshops throughout the world. He's a mentor and advisor at Techstars, Accelerace, and Slingshot. He's also a lecturer at MIT, Harvard, and UT Austin. I'd like to welcome the man himself, Ash Maurya, to the platform, please. Hello, Ash.
There we are. I lost permission there for a second.
Yes, no worries. Thank you. Good to see you, Ash. The reason why I think I came across you in one of your recent workshops that you did with the virtual, how to run a virtual incubator, came across your material again. I have to say, your material has always inspired me and has inspired also how we deliver content and the content that the validation program has. And you talk a lot about how to love the problem, right? How you should love the problem. And the major mistakes that we do as entrepreneurs all the time is falling in love with the solution. So I found it perfect for you to bring you on as a guest speaker today to shed some insight on your approach about that as well, to inspire many of the entrepreneurs that are part of the audience today. So thank you so much for joining. I'll leave it on to you, the floor to you.
All right, thank you, Wes. Thank you for the kind words. So I would say that, yes, one of the things that I've been an entrepreneur for many years, I'll share a very quick origin story of mine in terms of what I've gone through. But I talk a lot about mindsets. A lot of these ideas, Lean Startup, even tools like Lean Canvas have been around for a long time. But I find that today it's more important than ever because of all the changes we're going through. Speed is important, learning is important. But a lot of the pitfalls are really around mindsets. So one of the minds, we talk about 10 core mindsets, but one of the most important one, the number one is the one I want to address today, which is love the problem, not your solution. So I'll start off by saying that I'm an entrepreneur. I built lots of products over the years. Like many of you, all my ideas start out as awesome ideas, but they don't all end up that way. And that became a little bit bothersome once you get a few failures under your belt and you don't know why this is happening. So all ideas became start out awesome, don't necessarily turn awesome that way. I was okay with that in the beginning because I was ready for the search process. But at some point, when you realize that the time it takes to go through these ideas is not minimal, it takes quite a bit of time. I was averaging around 18 months to 24 months between these ideas. So this was the time from when you have that spark of an idea, when you start forming a team or you start doing early validation, to where you really start doing a lot of the market testing and scaling and growth. It takes about that time to hit to product market fit. And I'm talking even today, we are moving a lot faster. I know the 9 teams that are on here are going to be sharing their validation stories, and they're moving at light speed compared to where I was, 9, 10 years ago. And I'm dating myself, but that's where we were when all this was being developed. And one of the mantras back then was, how can we speed things up? How can we do validation faster? This became a personal mantra of mine. Life's too short to build something nobody wants. And I started by asking myself, introspectively, what is the cause for product failure? So all ideas look very promising in the beginning, but how can we tell good ideas from bad? That became the real question. I started by, like anyone, going online and doing some Google searches, and you get lists like these ones where you see lots of reasons for product failure. You can scan this list and you probably nod your head. But what I will say is that these are symptoms and not causes. A lot of these things that are on here are things that happen as a result of something else. So not having a good team is because you probably don't have a good idea, could not attract a good team. Funding, maybe not a direct correlator. I know lots of teams that have no funding and have built massive companies, and vice versa, companies that have raised lots of money and cratered miserably. So those were not really causal reasons for failure. The number one reason that I found time and time again came down to a very simple thing. And that was that we spend needless time, money, and effort building that wrong product, building something that nobody wants. And so it became increasingly important to try to prioritize testing for that. How do we really understand customer needs, customer wants? How do we really do these kinds of validation? Sometimes even before building product, how can we test these types of things? That became the question that I started looking for answers, and there were a few tools and techniques and frameworks that I ran into, kind of adopted them, used them, refined some of them, and that's kind of a bit of my backstory. The bigger question is, why does this happen? So we all know this at a visceral level, that we should build what customers want, but why do we fall into this trap of building things and then only realizing months later after we've built it that we built the wrong thing? This is the root cause of that, is something I call the entrepreneur's bias or the innovator's bias. It is our love of solution. This is where we get into flow state. Any maker out there has this bias, even some customers have this bias. But when we see a problem, we gravitate towards the first solution and make it our mission. We spend every waking moment trying to bring this product to life, but most first products don't really work. It's not me saying this, it's just statistically proven. You can look at lots of startups out there, and their initial product launches are not the ones that really make it. They have to pivot and iterate and kind of refine from there. So how do we fight this bias? That's what I want to spend maybe a few minutes just talking about some techniques. There's a newer model that I've been sharing with teams that I work with that I thought might be helpful for all of you out here. This is not the newer model, this is the older model, but there is kind of a newer way of using this tool. So this is the Lean Canvas tool that I developed many years ago. And one of the things that we highlight for the teams are these pillar boxes, the customer and the problem box. Important to get this foundation right. So if you aren't really chasing the right customers, aren't really solving for the right problems, everything on the canvas comes crumbling down. Your solution doesn't matter because it's not solving a problem. Your channels don't matter because even though you can reach these customers, what would they do with you, when you get there? Pricing doesn't matter because why would anyone buy something that doesn't solve a problem? So everything comes crumbling down. So that's why we encourage that teams focus in on this box. The challenge, of course, is that the innovator's bias is very strong with entrepreneurs, is that even though I tell people, or you might think you are starting with customer and problem, unconsciously in your mind, you don't ask the question, what problems do my customers have? You ask the question, what problem can I solve for my customer with my hammer, with my solution that I want to build? So in other words, we tend to justify or invent problems to fit into the solution that we already want to build. And this is a very common thing that I see happen all the time. It's even happened to me many times where unconsciously you will be solution biased and justify a problem based on some anecdotal evidence that you are cherry picking among all the other things you've seen. So that's just the way our brain works. We want to protect the ideas that we have. You need to be aware that this is happening. And so what I want to share with you is another way of thinking about problems worth solving. So the innovator's bias is a lot about asking this question. I want to build this product. What problems can I solve with that? But the key insight, the antidote to the bias, is thinking of something I'm calling now the innovator's gift. And it's a very simple idea. And the idea is that new problems come from old solutions. And if you can study some of these old solutions, you're going to find all the problems worth solving. You don't have to invent new problems. Actually, when you invent new problems, you put yourself into more trouble than you bargained for. Because if it is indeed a new problem, your customers don't even know they have it. So you have to make sure you're starting with things they're familiar with. If we look at how this plays out, I'll kind of share this model with you, and it may help some of you. So the first premise here is that there's always going to be an old way of doing something. And I'll make this a bit relevant with what Was talked about. We're going through probably the biggest life-changing event for a lot of us in our lifetimes, which is this pandemic. Think about, there's always an old way. So let's just take some examples. Even this event, it was probably preferred to be done in person. The way you work, you probably went into an office. There were all these old ways of doing things that were always there, and they worked just fine until something changes in the world. And so this always happens when you look at startups launching new products. Without a triggering event, it's very hard for them to find space for innovation. But once we have a triggering event where all of a sudden something changes, ideally in the world that's not caused by the startup, this changes the customer's perspective. So when you get this triggering event, new problems emerge. So how do we meet up in person? How do we run conferences like the one you guys are doing? How do we do pitch night? Those are the problems that we tend to deal with. And this is where the story then unfolds. The customer wants to go up this hill. There is motivation to get to some desired outcome at the top of the hill. And if the motivation is big enough, if the push is big enough and the problem is big enough, the customer is going to start looking for new solutions. And so this is essentially how the story gets set up, how it's the behavioral science of how customers consume products, how they buy anything. There needs to be a triggering event. There needs to be an expectation violation. Problems will then surface that were always maybe there, but become exaggerated. And if there's enough motivation, the customer starts this journey to consider new solutions. Your job as an entrepreneur is to craft an offer, and not just any offer. You want to cause a switch, and the way you do this is with a mafia offer. Some of you might be too young, maybe you haven't watched the movie The Godfather, but that's one of those classics where you hear the term mafia offer, and that's a mafia movie, but it's not. The mafia offer is really an offer your customer cannot refuse. The difference, of course, the way we do it is we don't get henchmen to force our customers to buy things. You just want to build a really compelling product. The way you build a really compelling product is by anchoring your product not against new problems, but against existing solutions. So if you look at what we are seeing in this picture over here, you're going to get a sale when your customer's motivation for change is there. So there's a triggering event. When your offer comes along where it starts promising the outcome, it shows an easier path up this hill. So let's look at video conferencing software. Let's look at streaming software. There's lots of solutions to the problem I just described earlier. Within that, there's going to be a lot of inertia and friction. So which one do you pick? Is it easy to use? Does it solve the thing you need to get done? Maybe it's the number of maybe you need collaboration. Maybe you need breakout rooms. Maybe you need high quality video, high definition video. All of those are where the details come in. But the way you get to these insights is by studying the customer. So the big takeaway here is that if you want to build something that's going to cause switch, study how customers are using existing products, understand where their struggles are, where the friction is in their existing solutions, not with your product yet, but their existing products. And then you will be able to be in a much better position to highlight what's new and different about you, what's your unique value proposition, what's that thing where push and pull is greater than inertia friction that causes that switch. Bringing this back to the lean canvas, and then of course we can take a slight pause for questions. But if you come back to the lean canvas, what you really want to do is reorder the way you think about how you fill this or how you pitch your product. Rather than saying, I'm building a solution and here's the problem it solves, tell a story. So start with the customer. Who is this customer? And then do a customer journey story. What has changed in their world? So there's this pandemic. This pandemic has caused people to look for new solutions to old problems. What were those problems they're encountering? That gives you that opening to lay that out. So what were they using before this triggering event happened? Where do you come in? So what's broken with the old way? And then where do you come in? So if you can even start a pitch this way, it sets the stage for your solution being the hero of the story versus trying to brute force your solution to be the hero. This kind of sets that stage for you. So hopefully that was helpful. The last thing I'll say is that for those of you out there that start with solution, even an MVP, by the way, is a solution, and it's not necessarily always grounded in problems. Starting with a solution is like building a key without a door. So you've got this key, it may be a beautiful key, you may be in love with this key, but if you don't know which door that's going to open, you still get stuck. A much better mindset shift, more easily said than done, is the one that I'm advocating, which is give yourself time to go and explore, give yourself time to go and study what else is being used out there. And if you can find problems, there's no such thing as a perfect solution. Every solution out there has problems. The question, of course, is, are they big enough? Are customers aware of them? That's what you really need to discover. And if you can find that, that creates a much better opening for launching your products. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with you today, this one mindset. There are some more, there's another Canvas tool that goes along with this. If you're interested, you can definitely check out that link there. And there's a longer video on this framework that I just shared with you. All right, back to you, Wes.
Thank you very much, Ash. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we can definitely take a couple of questions from the group. And I think the one that does come up, I'm sure you get often, is the differences between the lean canvas and the business model canvas. The business model canvas is definitely one that we use at District 3 and people are more familiar of. So what would be your perspective on the main differences and how would you advise leveraging both if we use both?
Yeah, so I would say that, I cut my teeth on before the business model canvas, I just was capturing my assumptions on a spreadsheet, and then I saw the business model canvas and I began to map it on there. The thing that I found, and it just comes back to love the problem, not the solution, is I felt that for a lot of early stage startups, the lowest common denominator is customer problem solution. So who is the customer, what problem do you solve, and how do you solve it? If you can address those questions, that's the foundation of the model. Partners don't matter in day one, because until you can show some traction, you're not going to get a major partner coming to promote you because they need something in it for them. So there were a lot of things on the canvas that I found, of course, very helpful from a business modeling perspective, but were not day one concerns. And being an early stage entrepreneur at that time, I found that it wasn't always addressing the riskiest assumptions that would be prevalent. At the same time, I'll say there are two different paradigms. So I'm not going to necessarily say one is better than the other. They're just different. And so we often will tell people, if look at what you're doing. I find that entrepreneurs are in the business of creating something out of nothing. So in the beginning, you don't have key resources, you don't have key partners, you don't have any of that stuff on the business model canvas. Sure, you need to know where they're going to come from, but you have to start the foundation with some early traction, and then those things manifest themselves. So that's what I'll say on that.
Thank you. Another question we have, is it ever helpful to try and predict how an old solution might soon become insufficient, or should any future hypotheticals always be avoided?
I find that timing, so it's timing is always very tricky. It's the general advice is don't time the stock market. Same thing goes with inventions. If you find, and this is where I sometimes make a distinction between invention and innovation, is that innovators like Steve Jobs, he innovated more than he invented. Sure, Apple has built a lot of original products, but what we know them for, the iPhone, even for the operating system, they didn't invent those things. What he did is he stumbled into a problem. He saw that people were using smartphones and said, these aren't that smart, half the screen is keyboard. Let me go and find a solution where I could just make it all screen. And so he went, and of course he didn't go literally, he got his team to go and search for this. They found it in some lab, and he turned that into the iPhone, right? So that's the mindset. So if you want to be an innovator, you don't necessarily have to go and invent the thing. Some of the things are already out there. You need to go find the problems worth solving.
Definitely. I think you're going to also find this question interesting. Do you have any thoughts about building a core product for scale versus customization for each client?
A core product for scale versus?
Customization for each client.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, the business you're in is trying to build a repeatable, scalable model. So if you customize for each client, you're just going to limit your speed. You're going to have more overhead. Again, there are companies, and there are always going to be exceptions to this rule. I know of a friend of mine who built a company and then essentially got a lot of big clients. So there were big customization dollars involved, and they scaled that way. So that's a bit of an outlier. But if you are, all things being equal, I would say try to look for something more repeatable and scalable than customizing for each client, because it's going to be hard to do unless that's baked into your model somehow.
Yes. And what if someone has found the right solution, but then someone else is building it? What do you advise to do?
That's usually never a problem. So people could be, they're always going to be copycats. So anything worth copying will be copied. Once Facebook came out, they weren't even the first social network. They copied the idea from someone else, and then they had tons of copycats of Facebook. But this is where on the canvas you find the unfair advantage box. Not the most important thing day one, but at some point you have to start building things that cannot be easily copied or bought. These might be your brand eventually, but it could be domain experts, personal authority, your team, could be other types of things, SEO advantages, channel advantages that you create. Those are the things you start investing in. So to me, the initial, if there's competition in the space, that's actually good validation that something is out there. You still have to be different. You have to be first to market share, not first to market, but first to market share, first to traction. And that's where you find sustainable advantages.
Definitely. Thank you, Ash. How about someone is asking here, how can we find out what problems companies are facing, right? So it's interesting when we see problems, if we think of people and it's B2C, but when it comes to more like enterprise and companies, obviously it's tougher to get interviews. What would be your advice there?
It's tougher, but the thing I always remind people is that people work in companies. Like, you're not selling to a Cisco or a Microsoft or an Apple, you're selling to people inside them. And so it's no different. You have to start working, sometimes you're in 1-degree networks to get to really anyone in the company to begin with. Maybe it's a user or an employee in the company, and you try to understand, get some information on what is their existing alternative today? What are they using for HR? What are they using for email or productivity? Are they using Slack? Are they using something else? And so you get that information, and then you might either give them a pitch, but you are then navigating the enterprise, asking them for referrals, and that's just the sales process. So when you're doing B2B sales, the first product you really build is, how do I find all the players in this complex sale? Who is the buyer? Who's the influencer? Who's the user? What's the value proposition for each? It's a bit more complex, but the mechanics and the fundamentals are all the same.
Excellent, thank you. We'll take one last question from Robert, and we'll end it there. Is the mantra, ideas are a dime a dozen, true or false in your experience?
Very true. So I'll just add maybe one more sentence to that, and that is that idea generation is great. Lots of people will have ideas, and as we saw, once there's a triggering event, lots of people will have very similar ideas. So to me, the next challenge is validation. So it's not so much generation, ideas are a dime a dozen, but how quickly can you get to traction? That is where the entrepreneur's true job really lies.
Yes, thank you, Ash. Any final key takeaways or comments maybe, or advice to aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
I'll just leave you with that, with kind of just repeating what I've said, which is, start with problems. It's a very common bias that when we get hit with ideas, we rush to solution. Deceleration in the early stages is the best thing that you can do. Yes, we want to go fast. I'm even contradicting myself. You have to go fast, but the counterintuitive principle there is that by going a little bit slower when the hockey stick is flat, and those of you in Canada know a lot about hockey sticks, but the flat part of the hockey stick is where the secrets, the insights are discovered, and you have to be very deliberate there. Once you do that, the inflection point, the tipping point generally takes care of itself.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Ash, for the inspiring words of wisdom. Would love to get you again in the near future. Thank you very much for coming. You're more than welcome to stick around and watch some of the pitches if you can. And yes, thank you. I'd like to thank the participants also for asking the great questions.
All right. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'll stick around for a little while and just silently drop off at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash. All right. Perfect. We'll continue the show. And I think we can get started with the pitches. The startups here, definitely all the founders that are going to be presenting are all obsessed with the problem. They're all definitely very experienced in the industry that they're trying to solve for. So this is how the event's the rest of the show is gonna go. We're gonna have 9 startups, right? 3 startups in 3 groups of 3 startups in each one. So you're gonna hear 3 startups pitch right after the other. And then we're gonna follow up with a Q&A. I'd like to introduce our Q&A panel today. Fantastic one. So maybe we'll get started with Ashley Kiefner. She's Director of Business Operations and Strategy at Membio, which is a biotech startup making blood in a lab. Pretty cool. She's also previous coach and advisor at Velocity, an incubator for early stage startups. We also have Edna Chosak, who's a veteran D3 coach who all our MedTech and HealthTech startups love. She helps them make a huge impact on their progress and their business. We also have Aaron Linden, president of Vector Growth Advisory. Previously was management consulting at the BDC and has been helping a lot of our startups, and particularly SaaS and AI over the last few years. Daniel Stoll, who is a coach and expert in go-to-market strategies, and has helped galvanize a lot of innovations across industries with a particular focus in fintech startups. And last but not least, we also have the JD, a head of coach, who's also an advisor and mentor at Creative Destruction Lab and other incubators and accelerators in the ecosystem, and also an expert in investment and growth. Thank you all for joining today. They will be asking the startups questions. And so would like to kick it off with the first group of startups today. We have the first three right now is Quantolio. Quantolio is augmenting the investment process, leveraging artificial intelligence and alternative data sources. And next we have OpEye Innovations, who's coming up with new effective ways for assessing best symmetry. And then with Circle Workspaces, which is reinventing the way we work in this new hybrid world post-COVID. So let's get started with the pitches for the first group.
Hello everyone, my name is Sarah and I'm an analyst at Quantolio. We build AI-driven software for investment managers. Unlike our competition, we drive insights from non-traditional data such as text and speech. With our work, we captured the attention of huge financial players, including EY and Desjardins, and we are on a mission to augment the investment management process. We're currently targeting institutional managers, but we have plans to extend our technology to retail investors and family offices. Markets are moving rapidly, and investment managers need to move at the same speed. But there's lots of data out there, and it's taking new and multiple forms. Without new technologies, asset managers cannot process these huge amounts of data at due time. And without fresh information processed at the right speed, they're operating suboptimally. The problem is there's new competition out there. Key players are entirely managing assets using AI, and the stats show AI funds are outperforming normal funds. They process data faster, they adapt to market changes quicker, and that's why they're having higher returns and are engaging less risk. At Quantolio, we want to bring these results to all asset managers. But before I go into the solution, allow me to show you one of its biggest features, and that is how it makes use of alternative data resources. Very few of our competitors are analyzing the news, bank speeches, and industry reports. But at Quantolio, we do so and more. We summarize and classify the sentiment of these resources. We then send out alerts for any threats or opportunities. Setting up alerts might be common, but we dig deeper than that. We outline how these changes can affect the customer's metrics. We then give out recommendations based on our cutting-edge AI models. These can be which stock can you invest in and which position should you take. And with that, we help asset managers process data and act faster. After discussing pricing with some of our clients, we set it at a $3,000 monthly fee. However, Quantolio solutions don't stop there. We're building solutions to augment the full portfolio management life cycles. Tools to assist in building the portfolio, backtesting, hedging, and monitoring the market. 69% of Canadian asset managers are investing in new technologies. Many of them are interested in Quantolio. Many are interested in our proposition for the full portfolio management lifecycle. Many are interested in our work with alternative data. We plan to work with the big clients under a consultancy framework. That way, we can develop our technology and do our research without needing any funding. Then over the upcoming years, we'll roll out our tools to the market, starting with our solution for alternative data. If you want to know how Quantolio can change your investment strategy, then follow us on LinkedIn. We're also looking for new talent, so reach out to Amin and I. Would love to hear your thoughts and your questions. Thank you.
Would like to kick off the Q&A section with those startups. So would like to welcome first startup that pitched, Quantolio, which is augmenting the investment process using artificial intelligence. Sarah and Amin, along with Daniel. Daniel, you have 2 minutes for a Q&A. Floor is yours.
Yeah, hi team. Really interesting pitch. I have a question. In the asset management world, time is the essence. So the time to value Quantolio offers, and how much did you validate that it meets market expectation?
I'm sorry, you're cut off for a bit there.
Yeah, I'm asking about the time to value you offer. And how much did you validate that the time you value you offer is meeting market expectations?
Okay, so we spoke to more than 60 asset managers, at large pension funds, at family offices and all. And we validated that way. We had different types of asset managers in the sense that some of them have, short horizon of investing, and other ones, are buy and hold, like pension funds. And we were able to validate a solution that solves certain problems in the investment process, mostly for pension funds and people who hold positions for longer.
Yeah, I'm asking about time because when it comes to AI, usually there is time to learn, time to build the model. So, and sometimes there are expectations from data to be gathered for building the model specific to specific cases. Yeah. So how long does it take? Is it something that is immediately available because you've done some previous work on that?
So the work we've done, so precisely my point, if we were dealing with a high frequency trader, it's very difficult to take decisions in a short period of time because you have to train the model in the meantime. If the investment manager is holding position for longer, then you can have time to actually run the model, and we also pre-test models as well. So we train models so that we don't have to, go back and forth. And so the models are pre-trained, so we can use these results to actually train for the next period of time in the model.
Okay, so immediately available in a way.
I mean, we usually give the software to the client, but in terms of a matter of hours, they're able to get.
Yeah, okay. And do you target all kind of asset managers, or only the ones that are not using AI so far?
So it's a very interesting question. It's a good question. We target, at the moment, we think we bring the most value to asset managers who have the data. That's very important, and who have not really experienced with the AI in the past. However, I think there's quite a big value we can add to investment managers that have been playing with AI and want to have a second opinion, for example, or build some tools that are orthogonal to whatever they have in terms of signals in their investment strategies.
Okay, this is where you position yourself as augmenting then their AI stuff.
Correctly, because most asset managers have already their strategies. We do not want to change their strategies. We want to help them take better decisions using data given their current strategies.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amin and Sarah from Quantolio, and thank you, Daniel. I'd love to turn it on to the participants and the audience to vote for their favorite from those three. And by favorite, we mean, if you were an investor, who would you kind of like to put your money on and invest in? Or if you are looking to join the startup and work for them, who are you more attracted to work for? So it's kind of like either or. We'll give you a few seconds here to make your vote. 5 seconds. So maybe just quickly, sorry for forgetting to mention, but yeah, Quantolio is augmenting the investment process. OpEye, assessing breast symmetry, and Circle, reinventing workspaces in a hybrid model. All right, going once, and we're done. Thank you all for submitting your results. And now we can go with the second group of the night, where we have our next three teams. We have Matt from Shreddability. Shreddability is looking to maximize the shreddable opportunities for software and technology companies. we have next Levelsoft, which is building Flyable, the Python development platform, bringing Python to the browser at unparalleled speed. And then Doc, which is making medical data transfers between clinics more transparent, efficient. So let's kick it off with the next 3 pitches.
SHRED is a very generous research and development tax incentive program from the Canadian government. Shredability takes over and completely manages SHRED administration for small and medium tech companies to maximize returns and save time. So unlike managing SHRED yourself, we have the technology and expertise to consistently catch and maximize your shreddable opportunities in the work you do. And we work with your consultants to get your claim filed, so you don't have to think about SHRED at all and still get your credits. So like I mentioned before, SHRED is an extremely valuable program. It's a great reason to do R&D in Canada and really operate in Canada in general. But the problem is that tech companies operate very differently than the types of companies that SHRED was originally made for. It means a lot of undue effort and general wasted time for tech companies that absolutely qualify for SHRED. Now, SHRED consultants who tech companies would typically engage with to get their claims filed are not as supportive as tech companies need them to be. Consultants want to focus on their expertise as tax program specialists, but tech companies need and are asking for more help than just a once-a-year transaction. So what we found is a gap between how tech companies operate and how SHRED consultants operate. And that's where Shredability lives. So we take over and completely manage your SHRED administration. And we do that in 3 key ways. So we integrate with the tools that you and your team use every day. Using data we extract from those tools and engaging with your devs, we identify and zero in on all shreddable work. Then we position that R&D work so that your SHRED consultant can package it exactly the way the CRA needs it to avoid audits. So today for our current clients, this is a phase 1, and it looks like our service business. So in phase 2, we scale through automation of identification and positioning. So positioning is really just text generation, which can be solved by creating a language model. It just needs the appropriate training data. Identification is the real opportunity because it's the single hardest part of SHRED. You have to extract uncertainty in order to position it. And developers aren't good at this. They're not just able to do it. It's a skill they need to build. And SHRED consultants really struggle with it because they lack technical expertise. But this is what I've spent the last 10 years of my career doing. We can take my knowledge and process and extend it with automation and thoughtful applications of AI to enable us to service tech companies in a fraction of the time that it would traditionally take. So in the next 90 days, we're looking to build out our business process with our first signed client. We're also looking to partner with our first SHRED consultancy. We have one now who's interested in collaborating. Consultants are natural partners for us and a channel as well, because we enable them to work better and faster. As well, we're going to begin some of the automation that we've been talking about throughout this presentation. If you're a small to medium tech company and you are done with the end of year scramble and you want to improve, I know Shredability can help. Get in touch with me at matt@shredability.com.
Hello everyone, I'm Antoine from Levelsoft. We offer Flyable, a Python development platform so Python developers can do front-end and scale their code to be up to 50 times faster. Unlike other Python's implementation, we bridge the gap between front-end and back-end with all the advantages and simplicity of Python. If you're a Python adopter, we launch an alpha prototype that you can test on our website. Visit flyable.dev and try it for yourself. Being a professional developer who worked for companies such as IBM, I started this project after experiencing pains with programming myself. I then asked Yohan, who worked at the CDPQ, to join me to build this business. Python currently holds 31% of programming searches on the web. In the upcoming years, 61% of developers around the world will use Python, reaching up to 15 million developers. Imagine you just bought a scooter for its simplicity of use. Imagine the scooter being Python, but now you run a ride on the highway. This highway can only allow certain vehicles that goes between certain speed. The same thing is true for development application. They require a certain performance that Python doesn't offer. Flyable allows you to keep the beauty and stability of the scooter while effortlessly transforming it to give the speed needed to get on the highway. We saw multiple cases where Python developers had to rewrite the program in a totally different language to solve the scalability issue because of Python poor performance. In addition, 55% of developers are considered full stack, meaning they work daily in both front-end and back-end. But the problem is that there's no reliable technology to use Python in the web navigator, limiting the effective full stack workflow. In recent years, Node.js unlocked backend development for JavaScript developers, reaching up a massive success. Developers using Node.js claim to have reduced development costs by 12%. No wonder why today, 76% of the JavaScript developers use it. Microsoft bought the young business Xamarin for $400 million because it enabled the C# language to do front-end. So as you can see, the line between front-end and back-end technology is getting thinner and thinner. Fireball is part of that change. We bring back-end developers to front-end, except this time, we aim for the king of the jungle, Python. The Fireball platform is divided into two parts. First, the IDE, where developers write their Python code, and lastly, the core technology, the compiler that transforms the Python code into a native 50 times faster computer software that solves scalability issues and can run both on Windows and in a browser. Meaning that Fireball users can now use Python for real full-stack workflow, reducing the development cost by 12%. We released a working prototype a month ago, and we're looking to raise funds to hire developers to scale the technology and release a solid beta version in November. At the end of 2021, our yearly subscription will be charged for a software version for businesses looking to lower development costs even more with advanced features for efficiency gains. There's still a lot of work to be done, and we'll need industry leaders to help us deliver a product on the market.
Help us scale Python development for engineers and make new technology accessible for everyone. If you're a developer passionate about front-end development or about Python, try Fireball today and get in touch with us.
Hi, my name is Tony, CEO of Doc. I would like to talk to you today about an experience I had as a cancer researcher. As a researcher, my job was to gather key information about a patient's battle with cancer. I would request from a patient's doctor their notes, which had all the important information and insights about the patients, about their care, and about their condition. But to my dismay, after my requests, I would get what I want back, maybe within a day to 3 months, maybe. Sometimes I wouldn't receive anything. Speaking to patients and doctors, this wasn't unusual. It was unfortunately how things were. In fact, presently, 1/3 of all doctors report not receiving care data or information that was sent directly to them.
And that's because currently, critical, confidential, and time-sensitive documents are communicated through fax or email. Services focused on sending information, but not on making sure that what is being sent gets to where it needs to go, or when it needs to get there, or who it may need to go to. So my co-founder Jimmy and I had a vision of making this process less uncertain, and it led us to build Doc. At Doc, we offer a platform for Canadian doctors to communicate care data with transparency and confidence. Unlike other clinical communication tools on the market today, Doc is the only one that can help your clinic work more efficiently and operate with less risk by making your communication with other clinics more effective and dependable. We're currently developing a prototype which will allow doctors to easily and securely transmit documents, all the while knowing all the details about what was transferred, whether your transfer has been received, acknowledged, and understood, and catch errors as they happen and not after. And all of this will be in a form that is no more difficult to use than a standard email. And we are offering an open API which will allow for easy integration with your current clinical software and electronic record systems. And we have a plan to help us achieve our vision. Currently, a total of 24 million pages are annually being sent by 10,000 primary care physicians working in a total of 1,000 primary care clinics in Quebec. Our strategy for our first year after MVP deployment is to be the go-to platform to traffic 5% of the total annual pages being sent in Quebec. This means capturing roughly 50 clinics or independent physicians. By charging an average of 10 cents per message in both a pay-per-send and monthly subscription revenue model, we will achieve $120,000 in expected revenue in the first year alone after our MVP deployment. And we believe we can get there, as currently we're already well on our way to completing a first product prototype. After completing our prototype, which is slated for the end of this year, we are planning to immediately begin building a deliverable MVP while securing the resources to help us quickly move through acquiring the PIPEDA compliance for health data at the same time. And all the while, we're working to secure our first intent to buy.
So, if you want to improve the quality of healthcare by helping us usher in a new age of care coordination, please come chat with myself or with Jimmy or any of our other team members. We're currently looking for Ruby on Rails developers and securities experts with experience related to PIPEDA compliance to join our team and help build our product. We're always excited about how we can bring healthcare to the digital age, and we hope that you are excited by this as well. Thank you.
All right, we kick off the Q&A for the second group. I would like to welcome on the platform Matt from Shredability, along with Edna, please. The floor is yours, Edna.
Great presentation. I want to dig a bit into the issue of the end customer, the companies versus the agents. Can you tell me roughly how many, and percentage-wise, how many companies use agents?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of tech companies, of the companies that I interviewed, it was about 100%.
Okay, so how do you plan to insert yourself into this world without antagonizing the consultants, or is your product developed for the consultants or for the end customer, which will allow them to avoid using consultants?
That's a great question. Really, I see this product as working in tandem with the consultants. The reality is that the consultants themselves have so much expertise when it comes to the tax portion of it that you want to help them do their job as best as possible. A lot of the companies that I spoke with really talked about that end of year scramble where they're trying to reconcile the work that they did all year with what they would end up submitting to the government at the end of the year. And anything that helps the Shred consultants do their work better, faster, easier is something that they've all expressed interest in. The people I've spoken to have all expressed interest in.
Okay. I'm also wondering, what do you think is the bigger problem that you're solving? The time of people in the company, or you think that they're leaving a lot of money on the table and that's your sort of what you're bringing to the equation?
Yeah, so in my experience, the big one has been leaving money on the table. Like as an individual engineer, I've seen a lot of money being left on the table just because we tend to tackle things at the end of the year. But in terms of value proposition, companies definitely look at it and say, oh, this is a very big time sink for me and I really don't want to do it anymore. Is there any way we can make it easier?
Have you attempted to quantify this value for the companies?
Yeah, so with my first client, for example, they really went deep on how much time they were spending. And the CEO was easily spending over 200 hours for a team of 5. The money really matters to them. They're a bootstrap tech company and they're spending the time because it means that much to them. So any savings of that was huge for them.
I would just recommend that you try and quantify money-wise and time-wise for an average company, how much your software will be valuable or service will be valuable for them. So.
Yeah, true.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt from Shredability, and thank you, Edna.
Thanks.
Next, I would love to welcome Antoine from Levelsoft and Ashley.
Hello.
Hello.
Great pitch, guys. I thought you guys did a good job explaining the problem and how the solution addressed that. My questions are more around the business model. So I'm curious who exactly the customer is. So you talked about 11 million Python developers, soon to be 15 million. Is it these individual developers who are your customers? You mentioned charging a subscription to business. Who is it? Who's going to be paying for this?
All right, so there's two segments. First, any Python developers that wish to go on a full stack workflow so they can gain the 12% efficiency I talk about. The second segment is any Python developers that have a need to make their actual code faster or their future code faster.
Okay. And then I guess following up on that, what is the sort of numbers case for the business then, in the sense of, you mentioned the 12% sort of efficiency save and the development cost. What does that translate to in terms of like number of dollars saved for the customer, and how much are you planning to charge for your solution? And I guess what's the size of the overall market?
All right. I cannot answer you on how much money it represents overall. It's over the millions, of course, because software development is very expensive. In terms of cost on our side, we're planning to charge a $400 yearly subscription for every developers using it. This price is based upon how the competition in the Python world is pricing their product.
Okay. I guess I would just encourage more clarity around how much money is actually being saved for the customer and then how that compares to the price charge, just to make sure that there will be that willingness to sort of pay. Another question I had was around the sort of competitive advantage, the sustainable competitive advantage. What about what you're doing or how you're doing it prevents somebody else from being able to do this?
All right. If you mean by competitors, you mean other Python's implementation that try to make Python faster. Our core technology, the compiler, is really what and no one can really repeat, because there's really some really advanced technology in it that the company will have to really pay a lot of money to be able to recopy.
Got it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Antoine, and thank you, Ashley. Next up, I'd like to welcome, please, Tony and Jimmy from Doc, and Aaron again. All right.
Hey, Tony, great presentation. I think the problem's really clear. I think any of us that have lived, those kind of situations where medical files get misplaced and not everyone has the information they need, you can relate to that. I'd like to just get a quick little bit of perspective on you on the solution side. Did you validate any other potential approaches for better managing that communication between clinics, between different physicians? For example, making that data the personal property of the individuals, or some sort of different database solutions. Just maybe speak a little bit about the validation process and some of those other options, assuming you explore them.
So for validation, we've spoken to around 80 or so medical professionals. What became very apparent in the beginning was that all of these medical professionals, whether they're in the same hospital, in different units or different hospitals or different clinics, they all operate with what they call their own unit culture. And this unit culture is incredibly varied between even just units in the same hospital. So in order to sort of, we saw a lot of logistical issues arising from this. So when an emergency unit tries to speak to a thoracic surgery unit, the communication that they have there is very scattered. They don't have a united way of talking about things or sending information. So what we tried to do in validation was to really find sort of a single strand on which to start solving this problem of communication, of how do we sort of unite people on how to communicate this information, and what are sort of the pitfalls of the current ways that people are communicating, and which ones of these are sort of the most painful. Of course.
Okay. Yeah, just to kind of move on to something I really want to dig into in terms of, you spoke a little bit about a kind of oncology scenario. I think you identified primary care physicians as your users. This unit culture, I can understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day, who's your underlying customer for this, and what are the big value props for them?
This is for certainly our beachhead is identified as the primary care clinics. And for us, the primary customers are sort of these primary care clinics. So the IT managers in these clinics, or individuals trying to manage information in and out. So for example, one of the big value of what we can provide is, currently a clinic will send out several referrals to several different clinics for one of their patients. Maybe one of them will land, maybe none of them will land. This leads the clinic to be in a very waiting scenario in which they're spending a lot of time trying to figure out where they can send this patient. Sometimes it may not even go anywhere. So we can sort of streamline that. We'll let you know exactly when a referral is looked at. You can send multiple referrals. If 2 of them come back, you can make a decision quickly. So we drastically shrink that time down. And this saves a lot of time. It saves a lot of resources for these clinics who have to pay physicians and administrative personnel.
Just one final comment before I kick it back to Was. It'll be interesting to look at public health as a customer segment and what value props matter to them as well, in terms of time savings, reduced liability, reduced cost by having quicker ramp up times and stuff like that. So, but great work, great answers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Jimmy and Tony from Doc. All right, would like to hand it over to the audience to please vote for their favorites among the 3. Shreddability, looking to maximize the shreddable opportunities for your company. Levelsoft, building flyable Python development platform, bringing Python to the browser at unparalleled speed, or Doc, making medical transfer, data transfer between clinics more transparent and more efficient. I'll give you a few more seconds here to finalize your picks. Going once, two more. All right. Thank you all for submitting your results. And we'll move on now to the last group of the night, the final three startups. We have Modularity, a biotech startup fighting cancer by making cancer therapy much more safer. And we have Quinoa, which is making eating simple and enjoyable for people with type 2 diabetes. And finally, Verify. If you're looking for ways to purchase, hold, or transfer Bitcoin in a more secure way, you probably want to talk to the folks from Verify. Let's kick it off with their pitches.
Hi, my name is David White, and I'm the co-founder of Modularity, where we're developing the next generation of immunotherapy. Using gene therapy, we can reprogram a patient's own immune system to recognize and kill cancer cells. The current standard of care, while promising, has dangerous side effects and limited efficacy in adults. Our novel technology promises to make this therapy safer and more effective for patients who relapse. Our prototype is going to preclinical assays this fall, and we want to tell you about the next wave of immuno-oncology. Today, there's new hope for the tens of thousands of patients who relapse from leukemia and lymphoma. A new line of defense against cancer, chimeric antigen receptor cell therapy, or CAR-T, a promising new treatment. CAR-T therapy is a combination of cell and gene therapy whereby we'll modify a patient's own immune system to recognize and kill cancer cells. And what makes a CAR-T is the CAR, so let's zoom in just a bit. CARs are proteins with one half that recognize the cancer cell, that works quite well, and another one that activates the immune system. And this is where things fall apart because that structure causes what we call tonic or always-on signaling, and this starts a cascade of events leading to relapse in more than 50% of cases. To restore proper function, we needed to go back to the drawing board and completely reshape their architecture. So in his lab at the University of Montreal, Professor Etienne Gagnon decoded the assembly mechanism by which natural immune systems come together and transmit information inside the cells, and he created a new platform to build the modular antigen receptor complex that mimics the natural immune receptors without interfering with them. And this restored normal signaling behavior. When we express our modular receptors, first thing we notice, tonic signaling is down 90% compared to the chimeric receptors. Then that allows our cells to persist much longer. At 4 weeks, the chimeric receptors has already exhausted the immune system. But our modular receptors are still as fresh as day one. Now, I want to remind you, this is not a one receptor. This is a new platform to build receptors for personalized antigen receptor therapy, not just leukemia. So we've already created more incarnations of our technology. In collaboration with other groups, we now have receptors to address triple-negative breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and with our first partner client, Excelthera AML. Our prototype against B-cell lymphoma should be able to integrate the market within 3 years, a market that is booming right now and scheduled to grow at 35% annually through 2026. Our beachhead is biotech, where we license access to our platforms for startups who look to implement or differentiate their therapeutic approaches. Further down the line, we will look to license these receptors with improved safety features to large pharmaceutical groups looking to de-risk their clinical trials. So around the technology emerging from Dr. Gagnon's lab, we're assembling a team with a deep understanding of immunology, structural biology, and biotechnology. We've established a partnership with In Vivo AI to automate our protein design development by machine learning. We are Modularity, the modular antigen receptor platform with a prototype ready for preclinical trials. We are looking for $1.5 million in seed funding to refine our platform and take our assets through IND-enabling studies. We are looking for talented immunologists and molecular biologists to join our team. So if you want to take the fight to cancer, contact us at modularity.bio.
My name is Tristan, co-founder of Verify. We're building the Bitcoin lifestyle by providing our users with the tools necessary to verify the authenticity of their funds, transact securely, and maintain confidentiality. Unlike our competitors, you don't need to be a Bitcoin pro in order to use Bitcoin the right way. So we're a Bitcoin company. This means that we deal with a censorship-resistant form of money. It's also the rarest good on this earth after human time, since there's only 21 million units that will forever exist. It's also open source and permissionless, so anybody can actually join this movement and participate in any way they like. So prior to validation, we've been helping our clients buy and sell Bitcoins and have built an exchange to do so. We've also been offering consultation services to help with securing those Bitcoins for the long run, and maintaining privacy and sovereignty over those funds. And so far, we've helped in securing around 5.2 million worth. With regards to the exchange, we've helped exchange around 300,000 worth since its inception, which has also been promoting a lot of educational content to the community through our blog posts and through managing Bitcoin Montreal, the meetup group. And throughout the course of the validation period, we've talked to an additional 70 people in order to get a better understanding of the frictions they encounter when using Bitcoin. As a result, one of the greatest learning experiences that we came across really is that using Bitcoin is difficult. For example, 50 billion worth has simply been lost by users, and another 10 billion worth has been stolen by hackers. So people have trouble effectively verifying that the funds they control are really there, and they have a lot of difficulty in managing and securing them. And what you have on the screen as well here is an interface to actually using Bitcoin right now, properly using it the right way. And what I mean by the right way is downloading the Bitcoin blockchain and validating every single transaction on your own, independently from everybody else. So you are a peer, and you are the one trustlessly verifying that the funds you claim to have are truly in your possession. And right now, this is not an easy task to come by. Several companies have attempted in order to build more effective ways to do so. And right now we believe that we have the best solution out there. And it would be through using the Vero dashboard, which is present here. So you're not dealing with outdated or confusing designs. We really took the time of extracting the complexity around Bitcoin as much as possible, just so those users that aren't technically savvy enough or don't have the time or expertise to become a Bitcoin pro, well, they can readily have Bitcoin accessible to them through this clean, simple interface. All they have to do is download it. It's one-click install. It's free in the open source. They have the Bitcoin blockchain running, and then they have this dashboard on top. And then we'll also be integrating premium features in order to monetize this process. And those premium features will come around Q1 2021. Before then, we want to launch and grow the exchange in order to finance the rest of this project and launch the freemium version. And then the step after the paid tiers would be really to develop an enterprise SaaS. So businesses can easily either build Bitcoin applications or integrate them into their existing systems without going through the hassle of recoding Bitcoin into their enterprise. So the next steps would be really to automate and grow the exchange, complete the development of the dashboard, and then offer those premium features and support for the users and start monetizing this as soon as possible. If you're interested in Bitcoin or would like us to guide you into purchasing your very first ones, or need help in securing them, please feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to give you a helping hand. Thank you.
All right. I'd like to kick off the final Q&A session with the last three startups of the night. I'd like to call on David from Modularity and Ashley, please.
Hi, thank you for the pitch. Super important problem and obviously very cool science. I have a number of questions. First, I understand that your main claim is around the improved safety and longevity, but I'm curious about the efficacy and how the efficacy of a therapy built on your platform compares to sort of the existing alternatives.
So if we look at efficacy in our model, we seem to be doing a little better in vitro than the standard of care. Of course, what we want to see is efficacy long-term in patients, and that's why we think the immune exhaustion problem that we're solving is going to be the big plus.
Great. So I would say, regardless of whether or not the efficacy is the same or improved, which is even better, having that in there is clear, because not having that there just made me question if it was as effective. Second quick question, does the company own all of the IP?
All of the IP is right now owned by the University of Montreal, who has given us an exclusive license to use the technology.
Okay, that'll be important to clarify as well in terms of investability. And then I guess perhaps my biggest question is around the business model. So your pipeline strategy would suggest that you plan to take these assets through to market yourself, but you did mention a business, a licensing model later on. I guess, which is it, is the first question.
First, it will be a license. Of course, the manufacturing of this type of therapy is really the biggest roadblock for us. Only a few companies can do it. And so we'll be looking through a license. Of course, developments in the future may make this manufacturing process a lot easier, where we don't need to rely on big companies with large manufacturing centers.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess if you are going to go with a licensing model and you already know it's sort of safer and just as effective or more effective, why wait to go to the big pharmas who are already producing CAR T-cell therapies? Why not go to them sooner? And I guess, have you talked to them? And if you did, what did they say?
We've had some contacts with big pharmas as the technology was developing. They've showed interest, but of course they want to see how far we can bring it first. We will continue our contact, and we believe that when they are interested, they will make it clear.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. And thank you, David, from Modularity. Next up, we'll have Tristan and Gustavo from Verify, as well as Daniel on the platform. Thank you.
Hi there.
Hi. Great talk. I like really the idea and the product. Quick question to start. The Beacon story has been a bit hectic over the past year. So do you have, did you find enough, people to have a worthwhile market?
Yep. So we've actually been operating in Bitcoin for the past 3 years, and it's been about 1.5 years that we've been working actually in Verify. In the past, it was other ventures. So we've gone around the space quite a bit, and we've taken really a long time to talk to the most important actors in there, as well as regular users. So we do believe that there is a strong base, and we think that it will keep on growing and Bitcoin will impact the lives of at least in the coming years. Like we expect like 3 to 4 billion people will actually be using it ultimately in the next decade.
Okay. From what you said, I understand that you claim to make Bitcoin simple and secured.
Right.
However, you mentioned, being hacked, losing Bitcoin. So in your validation, process, how much finally did you find people more interested in the secured part than the simple, simplicity stuff?
All the users we've helped and talked to are all interested in security. It's the main concern. The concern after that would be privacy, but so long as security is taken care of, which is why we've done a lot of consultation work, just taking care of that aspect, making sure people won't become targets for hackers, and as well as disincentivizing people from keeping their funds on exchanges, because ultimately those are also honeypots for thefts as well. So our product really is simplifying the security process for maintaining your Bitcoin on your own and making sure that they are under your control.
Okay. I didn't get that really. I thought it was, let's say, making simple and secure, which is a bit different. Okay. So you have specific features or specific capabilities that are, supporting this notion of being more secure than going with a rough interface you showed in the presentation?
Yes, so our futures really revolve around the simplification of the deployment of backend services. So a lot of times, if you want to take the experience to the level we're proposing, you have to use command line and deployment of backend servers. So that is all automated on a self-hosted process. So everything is self-hosted by the user, but it's all automated with some simple front-end buttons, such as deploy a Bitcoin node, which will allow you to verify your transactions, look up on the blockchain whatever information you want to look up. That's another feature we have, and it's all verified cryptographically by your own computer. So you're not trusting like a third-party API that might be have different interests than you. You're verifying that you really have the authentication of your data. So that's the other feature. And let's say a lot of people use mobile apps for Bitcoin, but they have to connect to third-party APIs. What we propose is, instead of connecting to those third-party APIs, through our dashboard, you can just scan QR codes with your mobile apps. So you connect your mobile apps with our dashboard, and you still can use your experience, the experience you're used to on your mobile phone, but you have more privacy and more security by connecting to your own maintenance dashboard.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Tristan and Gustavo. All right. So that's it for all the startups for the night. We're going to ask the audience to vote, please, on the last 3 startups here. So we had, again, Modularity, fighting a biotech team fighting cancer, making cancer therapy safer. Quinoa, making eating simple and enjoyable for people with type 2 diabetes. And finally, Verify, securing and verifying your Bitcoin transactions and funds. A few seconds here for everyone to vote. Right. Perfect. All right. Thank you all for submitting your results. As we working on the back end here, collecting the results, so we're able to announce the crowd favorites as well as the coach favorites. This will help direct and guide us to deciding which of those teams will be able to continue right away into Launch and Grow. But not, by no means is this going to be actually the ones who are favorites going to be automatically into Launch and Grow. That decision will take place in the next day or two. And I'd like to remind for all the teams that end up finishing the validation, I mean, it's already a major feat to finish 12 weeks of this program, very intensive. So it's a major success and achievement already. And if any teams don't continue through Launch and Grow, they are encouraged to continue with their business. Obviously, if they're sold and they feel that their heart is into it and they want to continue validating, is to come back once they've actually reached the validation stage that we see fit. You come and apply again at District 3, and we offer you dedicated coaching that you see every 2 weeks, as well as access to all our services, workshops, Global X, as well as access to financial execution support. So, and even if you're a startup already in business and you want to apply to Launch and Grow, heavily advise you to visit our site and contact us to see how we can help you. I'll also notice that a lot of people were submitting questions on the Q&A. A lot of founders have been answering those questions on the Q&A, so you can check it out. We will also be putting you in touch with any founders that you want to connect with. I saw that a lot of people are already reaching out organically on the Q&A and the chats. But we will be sending out a form after to take your details and send it to the founders so that they can connect with you. So yeah, I encourage you to please apply to the validation program if you want to also go through the validation program. The deadline is end of August. So please apply, and if you have any questions, do let us know. I believe we can share the results for the coach favorites and the crowd favorites. And here we go. We have all the same across the board. The crowd has the same perspective as the coaches. We have Quantolio from group number 1. Congratulations. Doc from group number 2. Congratulations. And finally, for the third group, we have Modularity. Congratulations on the favorites for today. And I mean, I think that wraps up the event for today. I'd like to thank all the attendees for making it, submitting your polls, and engaging throughout the session today. I'd really like to thank the team for making all of this possible behind the curtains, from Shannon, Ghislaine, Zach, and Rosa. I'd like to thank all the validation coaches. It would not have been possible without you for all these teams to progress to where they are today. That's Ryan, Alex, Jill, and Jane. And thank you all for the Q&A coaches on the panel today, Edna, JD, Daniel, Ashley, and Sharon. I'd like to thank everyone again. And I also want to thank a lot of the residents that made it today that also helped a lot of those startups in progressing. So thank you all. Thank you all for participating. And I wish to hear from the audience that want to be applied to any of our programs to please also visit our site, district3.co. If you have any questions, we are here to answer. And thanks again. And wish you all have a great evening and a good night. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the near future. Bye-bye. Thank you.